Hello?
Hello, Bradley. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was trying to find some papers and research on aging-based modeling, but then I couldn't get one on the visual fields as such. I think there's a research question over there. Try to figure out something else after, and ask my coordinator also.
Oh. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more in the meeting.
I can hear you.
Oh.
Seems to be some feedback.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about it later on in the meeting.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I don't know who's coming today. We have Jesse and Aksh, and I think probably we have a lot of new people from the Brains, Minds, and Machines group that have been joining Slack. So I think the number is up to 8 or 9 people. So Jesse, have you interacted with, I mean, obviously you know some of these people, but like have you interacted with people in that group?
Not really. The whole the brain-spine machine stuff is just very. I mean, I've informally interacted with people through like Telegram and Twitter and sparingly in the group that we set up right now, and it's just very. It's just a significantly different experience from Neuromatch Academy, and I don't, I say that with all due respect for the different circumstances. Like, I'm very glad to be a part of the summer school and everything like that, and look forward to it. But there's really not a lot to talk about yet, honestly. Like, I've mentioned, hey, I like to look at these materials, but outside of that, there hasn't really been anything to attempt to really communicate. So it's a little bit. I think people have been kind of hungry for things to do and talk about, and if they show up or whatnot, I welcome them to comment on it. But there's just sort of been not really a lot of. There hasn't been much to say.
Yeah, I was a little. I didn't know quite how to approach it. Like, there's a Slack channel now, and I don't know. Like, I mean, people have talked a little bit about posters, but I didn't know what to sort of bring up as topics or whatever.
Yeah, I'll look at that again right now. I'll be more fully on camera in a few minutes, but I think it's the posters thing is something specifically that I bring up, and it was a little bit strange in that there's talk about poster, and it's like, oh, would you like to apply to submit a poster? And yes, I did. I've been accepted. For the last Thursday. So I forget 2 weeks, the second week of it.
Right.
But then there was an email yesterday, like, oh, if you have your poster submitted here to a Google form. So I would be curious to talk to other people about what they've gotten, because I feel like there's been a little bit of lack of clarity, or just like things that sort of pop up and like, hey, here, do this. So I think it would really be. I wish there was a little more of a centralized point of discussion officially, because there's not really a lot to do that right now, and I think that's sort of the logjam, because people. I think there's the will, but there's not really the way in some forms of it. So highly anticipated, and I have no idea. I don't know what Monday will bring.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Oh, is it this coming Monday it starts?
Yeah, it starts Monday. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, it'll probably be more maybe useful in talking about things during the session than before, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know who else is gonna join the meeting, but we can go right into it. I have a couple things to talk about, and I know Jesse has some slides he just sent me. And then, yeah. And then Ashka's like, oh, we want to talk about the thing that she just mentioned about her literature search. So, and then let me get into some of the stuff here. So, oh, there we got someone coming in. Hello? Hi, Hanson. Okay, so why don't I share my screen here? The first one I think I'll talk about is okay. So this is the website that is sort of associated with this group as we meet. We have the main lab site, but this is the site that I use for the stuff that we talk about this meeting. So this is representational brains and phenotypes, and this has people on it. I need to update the people. People, it's usually if you've made some contribution to the group. Like I said, I have to update it a bit. But we've got people who've done various things over the last several years. We have a couple of interest areas. We have cultural data science, which I've been working on with someone who doesn't attend our meetings, but we've been working on. It's Rishikesh Kulkarni. We also have growth and form, which is something that is sort of related to the diva worm group, but also has its own the phenotypic aspect of this name. So I just put up some materials recently. I put a paper on the bioarchive, and I have some movies. If you read the paper, it'll make sense a little bit more. This is about heterochrony, so I know Anson and I were talking about that in a meeting several weeks ago. And so this is a follow-up on that. That's something that I've been working on for a while. And now it's just put that out. And this is related to a presentation that I'm going to be giving at a conference at the end of the month. So there's Dynamics Days Digital, which is coming up on the 24th, 25th, 26th. So I'm presenting at that on this topic. So I don't have the slides yet for that, but we'll talk about that maybe next week. Then there's phasic IA. So this is intelligence augmentation. This is a topic we haven't really talked about in this group so much. We talked about the allostasis machines, and I presented on that at Neuromatch in May. There's a couple other things in here, some publications on something called physical intelligence. So this is like human-computer interaction, human factors type stuff, but along with this idea of allostasis machines and virtuality. So there's a lot of the stuff related to virtual reality in this little topic area as well. And then finally, we have the cybernetics and complexities. So that's the one where what we've been talking about most commonly in this group. So this is the developmental Bradenberg vehicles, and as we have some of those things listed here. We have allostasis machines, which doesn't have anything associated with it. I might move that into the other category, but I was just kind of putting things up. The MetaBrain models, which is this is the GitHub repository. The link's broken, but I think we've talked about that. So, or actually, I don't think the link is broken. It's just, oh, I see it is. Let it colon there. Okay. And then that's this project that we've started actually before Neuromatch that has a bunch of folders now on different topics. These are kind of a diverse set of topics because remember the whole idea of the metabrain model is this idea of the representation free and the representation rich model that interact with one another in a single kind of brain representation. And so I haven't gotten a lot. We haven't seen a lot of movement on that. We haven't had any open source people, come by and want to contribute. But we've been building up on this. Some of these presentations that I gave in the group here, the agent-based model lecture is in here. I don't know if I don't have the information one in there, but I have a number of things that we've been working on. The DBVs have their own folder. The CGSs, of course. Jesse has a folder in here, and so does Anson. So those are open if there are things that you wanted to contribute on that front. You have your own folder in there, and anyone who wants their own folder in this project, they can just request it or push a folder with some content in it. And then let's go back. One more. Oh, I guess not. Well, anyways, that was it for that website. So that's the website update I wanted to show people, just so they were aware of what was going on there. Okay, I think I stopped sharing. Now let's see. What did I want to do here next? Oh, this is the website, so I can actually finish one more thing on the website. For some reason I didn't see it on there. Yeah, I think the tab switched on me. Okay, and then this is finally the software. Actually, we have a software tab, which I think I'm planning on doing some we have a couple of software platforms in the group that have been released, so I'm going to make a list of those in this tab, probably a table of them, as we have Sam Felder put some software out. There was another person in the group in 2018 who did some more educational software, and then we had 3 people last year do software on the developmental Bradenberg vehicles, and so we have a bunch of open source packages, but we don't really have an outlet for it too much. And then there's this EDU tab. So the EDU tab is the Google Summer of Code that's a sponsor of the activities in this group. One of the sponsors. We've had a couple of people in. Oh, here's Jim, and he did some software. So there's a link. I might combine those 2 pages, but and then we finally have the stuff that we're more familiar with, at least amongst the 3 of you, the people here. We have our Saturday morning NeuroSim group. We have an advertisement for it here. I think the time is wrong on that, but and then we have a couple of links. Actually, this is a good place where if you have ideas for video series that you want to profile, you can send me the link. We have this channel on YouTube. We have the Artificial Life Virtual Seminar Series, which has a number of seminars on artificial life topics. NeurUp's 2019 videos, so they've made their videos open. And also the Artificial Life Conference 2020, which I attended a couple weeks ago to give our talk. They're going to be doing a Twitter conference in the near future. So they're going to be on Twitter, and they're going to be answering questions about papers that were presented. And a lot of those papers are going to be on YouTube. So they're going to be open at some point. When they become open, I'll let everyone know. And then finally, this is the OHBMX website. This is for the Twitter conference that we did in March on the Bradenberg vehicles. But they have a number of talks that they profiled that, went for 24 hours. So there are probably a lot of talks that are really interesting that you might want to check out. And then finally, for the education, we have the Neuromatch Academy page. Now, this is the one where this was for the discussion group where people came about 2 weeks before the actual Neuromatch Academy to get some preparation for it. And so I set this up with Jesse, kind of in an ad hoc manner, just putting together this website. Had a little bit of feedback from the NMA people directly. They were pretty excited about the idea, but it wasn't sponsored by them. We got probably about maybe 65, 70 people to come through and join in these activities, and there were varying degrees of interaction there. We had a number of different topics that were sort of pointing people to a number of different topics. So this table here with resources on it, this is incomplete, but this has I need to update this table. But they're resources from the Neuromatch Academy, so their GitHub repo. They had some activities on the web that they recommended. There were some other tutorials in more traditional computational neuroscience, some fundamental neuroscience talks. So those are the hardest because it was you'd have neuroscience is a huge area. And so how do you boil it down to an hour or two of tutorials? So there are some things like this edX's Fundamentals of Neuroscience that we linked to, and a couple other things. I actually did this Neurobiology of Aging and Life History talk, which is up here. The Conceptual View of Bayesian Thinking is up here. This is a Bayesian Statistical Rethinking course that is a series of YouTube videos, Python for beginners, and so on. So we have all these different resources that were, used in this thing. Now we were talking about and this is the nice little picture at the end. We were talking about doing something like this for the Brains, Minds, and Machines summer school, but it doesn't seem like that's necessary or possible necessarily. But I would like to recycle maybe some of these materials, maybe for next year's Neuromatch or for something else. And I'm not quite sure what. So I like this idea of the study artifacts. So when we set this up, there's this idea that we were going to use the GitHub repository to have people create little study artifacts and share them with people at this repository. I had a couple people take us up on that. One person from one of my other groups, Krishna Katyal, who created a nice tutorial on, I think it was some version of Python programming. And he has this nice little tutorial where he walks people through, and he has little memes it's interspersed with memes. So it's like you don't lose your mind going through the Python code, and so it's nice. Things like that are nice to collect and to have people contribute, and then they can get feedback on them, and they can interact with other people around the world. We're just kind of using this as a sort of a clearinghouse for a lot of this stuff too. So I don't really know what to do with this. If any of you have any ideas about how we might move this forward, maybe repurpose some of this material, let me know. Okay, so that's the website, and there's a lot of stuff about Neuromatch. I want to go through a deeper dive into what we've learned from Neuromatch later. But I did want to, let's see. I don't know if we want to talk about the project from Neuromatch, the Complexity of Feedback Loops project. Is that something we're interested in talking about this week, or?
Was that specifically towards me?
Well, I mean, I know Ash and you were both in that project, so.
Okay. Yeah, I would be interested. I don't know what. Well, what do you think, Ash? Did you have a?
the thing is, like, I can actually, I really want to work in this, but I don't know where to start. So, like, if you actually have some idea about it, I don't know from where to start in the data actually. So that's what is confusing me. I try to work like after a couple of days after this Neuromatch, but then I couldn't figure it out. So I just thought, like, when this comes up in the Slack or in this meeting, I could just ask about it. If you and anybody like tried about it or something.
Okay. Well, yeah. What do you? I mean, yeah. I guess so. I mean, I just wanted to get people's feedback on that. I'm not like I'm not forcing you to do it or anything, but I'm just. I think we have things in place now. And it's like, something can probably be pretty informal. So it's not like we have to make a lot of progress every week or whatever. Let me go to I think this is the tab. Okay, so I think this is, this is the project here. Okay. So this is the project, and we did this presentation on this. This was the very general idea of building, looking at different types of feedback and feedback loops to assess, things like, we have this data set, and then we have these different models, these hypotheses about how the mouse is processing the information in their brains. And it doesn't necessarily have to map to the brain regions, but it should map to some, model of feedback or feed forward. We don't even know if they're getting feedback. And so the data is, we have the data set here, and I can't remember which one it is, but let me see the README. Oh, that's not it. Anyways, we have the data set, and if you go through it, I mean, there are a lot of different. It's pretty overwhelming if you look at the variables. It's like, how do I put this together? So, I mean, the way I would approach this, and this is like for people offline as well. So there are probably people who couldn't make the meeting who want to maybe do this. You don't have to have been in the group to contribute to this. This is just something that is available as well. So if you want, if you think this is cool and you want to do something with it, that's fine. But we have the data. I think it's IBL data loading, and that's the Python notebook, and that will. I don't know if we have trouble loading these on GitHub, but you'll be able to go through and access the data in a Colab notebook, and then you'll be able to maybe play around with the variables. And I mean, the best way to do that is just to explore the data. So a lot of analyzing data is exploring the data, going through the variables, maybe looking at what the variables mean. I think there's I can re-up that thing in Slack where we talk about the different variable names and what they are. And then, it's just a matter of exploring the data. But I wouldn't leave it all up to one person. I would basically what you do though is if you have kind of a general idea of what you want to do, like, do I want to understand like do I want to see if there's some sort of simple feedback going on or some sort of more complex feedback? Then you can look through the variables and think, well, how does one variable relate to the other? How can we fit together a model of the variables that might explain what's going on? And that's where you can use your Bayesian modeling skills and maybe some reinforcement learning. And again, this isn't something you can just do like in a couple of days. This is something you might want to plan out a little bit longer term. So, it might be like a week or 2 weeks. You might give it a month or 2 months to come up with some sort of model that you want to test. Some sort of feedback you think that's going on given the data, and then plug the data into that model and then test it and then see what the outcome is. So I mean that's the idea, but the the great thing is here is that we have all this available to people. If you want to play with the data, we have it like open, so you can you just open up this Colab notebook. If you click on this link, it will, I think in GitHub, it just gives you the option to open it up in a Colab notebook. And then once you open it up, it opens it up in like a window that is, I think it actually puts a folder in your local Google Drive where you can do that. And it'll allow you to open up the data. There's a little folder icon to the left of the notebook. If you go in there, you can find the CSV file, and then you can download that. You can put that into a different program if you wish to play with the data more. But it's like one of these things I don't expect people to do it in like 2 or 3 days or even 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to take a while to think about how you might do it. But I wanted to revisit it, I'll be revisiting it again and again so that like we don't forget about it altogether, So I get the idea that, it's very overwhelming, and it is. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it much actually myself, but it's it's one of those things that I don't know. I mean, it's like you really have to have. I think at this point, we'd have to have like some sort of hypothesis maybe too. That let's think about like how this might work. Can we test this model of behavior? Can we apply the data to it, and then can we get some sort of result that's interesting? And so that's basically the process. So that would take that'll take a while for people to kind of formulate that, and that's good. That's why the Neuromatch projects were like they were 3 weeks, but they wanted to see how far you could get on it. And I think a lot of the people who did get really far were people who had already been doing stuff similar to this. So like one of my other groups, I think they were already interested in the topic that they picked. And so they just had the data set, and they were able to, because they had skills in Python as well, they were able to get to the data really quickly. But that's atypical. I mean, So, I mean, I just wanted to talk about that to keep that on the top of our minds.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesse?
Okay. There we go. Yeah, I think so. And I think I basically took an entire week off from anything directly Neuromatch related. So I will be looking at that more in the future. And I think there's something, I think there's sort of the let's approach the data aspect of it, which is inevitable. But I also think there's some work to be done on fleshing out the hypothesis that we have there about different techniques and different levels of complexity in how it's being done. And I think for anybody who is interested in the general topic of the project, we could have some more specific discussions about that, because I'm interested in that, and I will be working on it. But I think there's a bit of retooling, or just like gearing up to a very specific. All right, we're going to go into data looking for this, even if what we're looking for changes. I think having a little bit more, being a little bit more clear about what we want to look for regarding the different orders, I think it was called, of things, orders of complexity, and understanding what that means. So I think there's a place to talk about that a bit more, and I'd actually like to talk more about that maybe this week, or in the near future. Like it's something I'm definitely interested in doing. It wasn't an immediate concern for this specific week, so I haven't really no updates to say about it. But I think there's a lot of fruit to pull from it, and even in terms of establishing or furthering things from just like the connection to Neuromatch, I think will be important as things go on. And this is also related to something that will come up later. I have a set of slides to talk about, but like there's some other interconnected strands from Neuromatch that will come up later too, and I think this will be one of them.
Yeah, that's good. So I wanted to get to Ashk and then Jesse because she had a question she was asking at the beginning of the meeting, and then Jesse has some slides. So Ashk, you had something you were talking about, like a literature search.
She might be frozen.
Oh. No. What happened here? Can you hear me? Hello? I don't know. I can hear someone breathing.
I think that's also the chat sound, like when you type in a chat and it's like whoosh, it does this. Well, that was a whistle,
Maybe.
but it has a whoosh sound. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was your. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Well, Jesse, why don't you start on your thing and then.
Yeah, I'll do that in the meantime, but ask can interrupt any time when she gets back. Or if there's anything Anson wanted to say quickly, because mine will take a little bit. But yeah.
I think I need to read into the feedback project because I haven't.
Oh yeah, you haven't done any of that.
So I don't really have much to say right now.
That's totally fine. It's more like any other lab updates, I guess. Because I'm going to kind of go through a lot of stuff that happened. Oh, Axe, are you returned?
All right.
So yes, I had this literature search, and I couldn't find any models, any visual field models or any visual field testing algorithms which used agent-based modeling. There was no theoretical models to it. So I was trying to see this. I tried asking my coordinator too, and he said he doesn't know something as such agent-based modeling. So yeah, he said like he was a guy who's worked in visual fields. So I just tried asking him. So and he said there's nothing, like they didn't have any theoretical models in agent-based modeling till today or something.
Yeah. So we talked about this, I think, on Slack about in your specific field, if they're using now. So some fields aren't going to use agent-based modeling. So my recommendation is there are a couple of resources that are very basic. One is I don't know if you saw in the presentation. I didn't actually show that slide in the presentation, but there's a book called Turtles, Termites, and Traffic Jams by Mitchell Resnick. And so this is a book where it's sort of an educational approach to agent-based modeling. They use this Turtles platform to teach people the basic concepts of this topic. And the thing about it is that, agent-based modeling is something that a lot of different fields will take as like a method. They'll start exploring with it, and they'll see if they can apply their problems or answer their problems with these models. And so a lot of fields don't really have a good literature on agent-based models. There's some fields where people have done a lot of stuff with it, like in economics. There's been a fair amount of work, and in biology and in sociology, but like in other fields, they don't really have anything in the literature. So that doesn't mean you can't use it. It means you have to kind of figure out what problem you're wanting to ask, and then how would you map it to that model. So, I mean, we've talked about, I don't know if they talked about this much in Neuromatch, and maybe they didn't talk about it enough, but when you have a problem that you want to solve, a lot of times if you want to use a model, it requires a lot of work on like thinking about how you take the model that you have that you want to use and applying your problem to it. So, like hypothesis testing is pretty simple. We think about it. It's pretty intuitive to a lot of people when they get trained. You take two groups, you compare them. But in agent-based modeling, it's a bit different. And so agent-based modeling, you need to have like an agent and a group. You need to have a population of agents. So that's where it gets tricky. A lot of research isn't really set up like that. But if you want to ask a question that involves a bunch of agents, and agents could be people, they could be molecules, they could be cells, they could be any unit of measurement you want to think of. You're going to create a population of these, and you're going to create rules for them to interact. It's hard to really kind of create a bridge there, but that's basically what you'd have to do. I didn't think that there was too much in the area you mentioned, but I didn't know. I mean, but if there's nothing in that area, that doesn't mean you can't use the model. It just means you have to go through that process of mapping.
So I just thought it's something like you say when you take it as a group of people. I just thought it could be like taken as a group of, a particular type of cells in retina called the ganglion cells, which are the kind of the one of the segment of the bipolar neurons.
Right.
So these actually, they help in identifying the visual field. So this is what we test in the visual fields, like to what extent do you see. So if this gets affected in case of glaucoma or any eye disease as such, so I can actually you can find some predictor models which it's something like you can use, like if this particular ganglion cell is affected, the one next to this could be affected. It will be something like, again, an agent-based modeling. I can predict that this patient could have some different kind of visual field defect because of some defect at a particular area. So that's what I thought. There could be something done before this. That's what I thought, but there is nothing done previously. It could be a predicting model. That's what I thought.
Right. Yeah, actually, that sounds pretty like consistent. I mean, that sounds like a good research question for the model. I think that's fine, and I think you could get something out of it. In fact, I'm surprised there aren't models related to this somewhere. I can look around as well, because I think I've seen models like this. The problem, of course, too, is that they may be similar models, but they may not be implemented in something that's open that you can actually use. And I mean that because like people will build models in like some obscure language that is hard to use for modifying the question. So I mentioned NetLogo in the talk, and I think if you wanted to do this, that would be a good platform. And I know Jesse and Anson have expressed interest in using NetLogo. In fact, I might do, maybe next week we can do like a quick tutorial of NetLogo where we kind of look at like what they have in terms of models, and there may be something similar to this that we could modify, or is something that's easy to modify to make this project happen. So applying it to ganglion cells, because it sounds like the right type of problem. You have cells and they're arrayed in a population, and they can affect each other. The only thing you'd have to do there would be to, it's going to just be like this grid of cells, and they're going to be in different states. The only thing you'd have to do is specify the rules, and then do that in the language of the model, which I think is some sort of can't remember exactly what the language they use, but it's not too difficult to modify. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you particularly interested in using agent-based modeling, Aksh? I don't know if you might be.
Not particularly agent-based modeling, but then I thought this could be used. It's first time I hear about, like, not first time, like, brief.
Yeah. I would just say if you are, like, I think there's a few different ways to approach the project itself. And agent-based modeling is definitely one of them. But if you are interested in, like, wanting to learn more about that, I've dabbled a little bit in NetLogo, and I started a course on it through the Santa Fe Institute, which is like a base complexity institute, and they offer some coursework. So if that's something that you're interested in doing or learning more about agent-based modeling specifically, that's definitely an approach we can use, and so we can talk about more to learn more about and apply eventually. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll try to look into it, and then
Yeah, we can talk about that at length in Slack, because I'm not. There may be more readily accessible ways to approach the data and do stuff on the project. But like, if there's something about agent-based modeling that appeals to you particularly, like there's definitely some interest, pre-existing interest in that.
Agent-based modeling in visual field seems to be very directly correlated. It's like very direct. See, look at this. There's a point, and then you can predict things around it. That's very direct. So I just thought.
Yeah, I think it would be a very good. Yeah, I think it would be a very good alternative to that. If you're looking at like interactions, especially amongst cells or agents. So you get like in NetLogo, you get these statistics that are aggregate. So if you're looking at the interactions between cells, it'll sort of collect the mean, some value. It depends on the model, but they give you some output that's quantitative, and it's like a mean value for the population, and you can interpret it fairly easily. It's not like it gives you this obscure set of measures or that you have to go in and like figure out how to measure the effect. So it's a good. I think it's a good way to go. Agent, like the whole paradigm is pretty easy to work with, I think.
Yeah, I would second that. As far as like, you can make NetLogo very complicated or fairly simple depending on what you want to do. I don't know if can I do this really quickly?
Yeah.
Where do we go? Well, this probably won't be that helpful to see, but like you can if you haven't used NetLogo before, here's basically what you'd see, and well, it's not quite the image that I hope for. There's a lot of interesting ways to deal with it. Like in the tutorials, we had quite a bit of sliders. And one of the things that's nice about NetLogo is that it lets you sort of design these. You can all easily design these sort of sliders that would affect the relationship, and you can change quite a bit in how they operate. So I'm definitely open for exploring NetLogo as a means to use agent-based modeling on this course, and I kind of had already started in that direction for a related project anyway. So there's inertia in that direction, I'll say.
Yeah, and then the sliders, of course, are like parameter values, but you don't have to go in and program them manually. You can just play with the slider. So, like the philosophy is that you don't want to dig into the code constantly. You want to be able to change it on the fly. If you have different hypotheses you want to test, like say, like in your case of the ganglion cells, you say, well, there's a concentration of some molecule I want to up and see what the different concentrations are. You can do that with the slider easily, much more easily than digging into the code and going back and changing it. And I mean, it's just a higher level of programming that's makes it that much easier to do science instead of trying to fool around with the code. So I might do a short tutorial on that to pull it up in the meeting, and we can maybe ask questions about it.
Yeah, I would kind of second that, especially because there are direct ties to this and in ties to what I was doing. Even the things that Anson has kind of, we haven't really talked about a lot of Anson's ideas lately because of Neuromatch and everything else. But I think agent-based modeling and NetLogo are going to offer some interesting ways to, especially have very obvious visual interactions between some things. I think there's a lot there, and I think that's kind of one of the things I was going to bring up in my upcoming slides also. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we transition to that then?
Okay. Is there anything else people wanted to say about that specific topic before I launch into my slides? Okay. I will start up.
You can follow up in Slack on any of this. So if you have ideas about the agent-based models, or we can just talk. I'll do maybe some literature search on it as well for Ash, just to see if there's something that's maybe outside of her immediate field that I think might be relevant. So.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this again. So my upcoming, can you see my slides and such now?
Yes.
Even now that it's loaded?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just call this a week in review because there's just so much stuff that happened, but I did break it up into two kind of general categories. One is specifically the oral stuff, and then the other is there's a lot of overlap, but I wanted to start with Neuromatch Academy and different follow-ups. I think people are getting their matches now, which is great. For people just watching the video in the future have no idea what Neuromatch Academy is, Neuromatch Academy was a super historical, awesome, groundbreaking virtual summer school in the year 2020, where everything got canceled by a pandemic, COVID-19, etc. And Neuromatch originally was just a conference that people put on because of many people's events in Neuromatch, or events in neuroscience, were all just canceled and rapidly canceled. So there was one conference in 2020, there was a second conference in 2020, and then the organizers of these things got together and saw a tremendous need, and there was a tremendous output from many volunteers and TAs and other people to pull it off. But there was a summer school about this that was 3 weeks, and it just ended last week. A number of people in the lab were there. Actually, everybody, I think, in the meeting right now is there. And people who aren't in the meeting in the lab have been there too. So it's just this huge thing that's happened. And I think we did talk Saturday about it, but I've had a mix between just absorbing everything. Like, I haven't touched any of the material. I haven't really looked at anything else. I haven't looked at the feedback project much this week because I've sort of been, just, I wouldn't say recovering, but just taking a break from it. And then, but at the same time, there's still so much going on. And I would note specifically under the continued engagement item here, if people are interested in making Neuromatch 2020 happen, there is a volunteer form, Airtable, for the next upcoming events of things. And I don't know how widely circulated that was, but if you're really interested, I found it in the volunteer Slack. So if anybody's particularly interested in Neuromatch helping to it, or being a TA especially, which I'm not ready to do yet, obviously, but I want to continue volunteering. There's many projects in the interim mentioning things about working on furthering the tutorials, reviewing tutorials, putting information into a book format, other kinds of data analysis are all things that are going to be ongoing. So if you're interested in it, I would encourage you to do that. I think Neuromatch Academy has been a tremendous, very historical in the best way possible. So yeah, that's my plug about that. We just talked about the feedback project at length, so I don't need to say more about that. But I hear people getting their matches, and I've seen some talk about regional groups that have come up because of it. Have you, anybody else here, experienced? Did you get your matches, or like, did you get any? Has anybody else heard anything from Neuromatch about those things? I guess.
Yes, I just got these matches, and I tied up along with one of my, my Indian friend who was in my pod for, some discussion about, natural limit statistics as such. So I just thought like we could both work together with that, and then we're doing that. Apart from that, I did receive some matches.
Okay, great. I also, I just remember this now. I'm gonna look at it right now. Just something I actually found super duper interesting. There was out of all things, I found someone on Instagram, which is not typically what I would consider or look for. Like, I use Twitter extensively, but on Instagram there was someone actually used the hashtag Neuromatch Academy for something, and I'm trying really hard to find it, but I might not find it now specifically what it is. But someone shared their project from Neuromatch Academy, and it was basically looking at empathy and how visualizing some interactions, I believe. Here it is, I found it. They said it was from the HCP dataset where social cognition portion, where social interacting shapes video was shown to people, and they responded either with mental interaction, random movement, or not sure. And they were looking at how this could be a way to look at empathy, which I have totally not gotten to look into at all. But I feel like there's some really cool stuff. I feel like there's quite a lot of stuff from the Neuromatch. Like the feedback project continues, looking into our matches, looking into regional groups, looking into some other projects that there were so many really cool projects that, people might want to look with or work with or incorporate things in the lab. So I just feel like there's so much that could be said about this, and so much that'll be coming up in upcoming weeks. So just really encourage people to continue to talk about it, put things in Slack, ask questions, mention when you find interesting stuff, because I think there's a lot of really good momentum there. So, Neuromatch follow-ups, there we go. I'm not on the screen, so that's why I can't change it. I was trying to change the slides while looking at the screen through Gisty, and that doesn't work. Next, these strange acronyms, people who don't know what they are, probably
I'm still not seeing it.
But I can't see anything that's been shared.
Oh yeah,
like for quite some time.
Can I reshare a screen maybe? I don't know how to.
Can other people see my slides, or?
Well, you have. I see one side here.
All right. Well, let's just restart that again.
Yeah.
Hi. I don't know if this got screwed up because I was doing other things. Anyway. Can you still see this?
No,
Can we try? I don't see it. Can we try to do it in the the Google Meet? Is that okay for you all? Is that fine?
Yeah, I think we can switch over. I'm going to present something after this, so we might as well switch. I'll make
fine with that.
In the chat here. remember this link now. So we'll go to this link. It's in the chat, and I'll see you over there in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Hello.
Well,
I don't know if Anderson got caught in or not.
you might send him a message. That's where we're going.
Yeah, I know he had some other.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's continue where I left off. Yes. I wonder if this happens more when we use Chrome tabs. Like when you do a tab-based sharing, does that make it better or worse?
I have no idea.
Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. I noticed that the acronyms below CAD, CGS. Hello. I just wanted to briefly touch up on them and saying these projects aren't forgotten. This is the contextual neurodevelopmental dynamics, which is sort of the summer project under like using CGS, contextual geometric structures. That's still something that I am working on and kind of fits into some of the other projects. I'm just mentioning it here in the sense that it's not to be forgotten, even though it's not the highlight of this week's talk. And for people who are interested in lab projects or things to further develop, things that are in the works along the lines of the meta brains. I probably should have put meta brain there because that's what we're at. It's sort of the evolution of our brain-to-brick vehicle focus. I had someone randomly actually come up to me on Twitter and say, "Hey, I really like your brain-to-brick vehicle paper, by the way." So kudos to the lab for that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But I just wondered, could I mention that? And I did put this here of there's some really interesting applications for agent-based modeling, which I kind of was alluding to that, and potentially reinforcement learning together in ways of combining elements of the feedback project and the existing contextual neurodevelopmental dynamics meta brain project. Excuse me. All the stuff that I wanted to mention, the lab energy description is up on GitHub. Thank you for working with me about that, Bradley. I think that's all set now. Also, just a note, there's really cool, if you guys don't know, like check out, I can link to that description specifically, but also there's like really cool, the vision of oral orthogonal lab and some of its, I forgot what it was called, like the vision and mission statement of the lab. They're actually pretty cool, and I recommend people checking them out if they haven't. Because it kind of explains some of the philosophy, education that we're doing here. I'm interested in those things, so it's cool to see that happen and incorporate them into the lab manager description. I think that's it. Oh, other thing too, like I'm going to be working on creating some basically accessible data collections or databases or things in Notion or just general web pages. Like I know Brad mentioned a bunch of updates at the start of this meeting about the website. I've been looking into ways to do, I can't really easily show it, but just creating some web pages or ways to keep track of the events that Oral has participated in or other things like that. So if you have ideas for information about the lab you'd like to see, there's also some upcoming stuff for other projects or the season of docs works that may be happening. Like there's going to be some movement that I'd like to see and some more accessible version things. So if there's stuff about the lab that you're like, hey, you have a question about how it works or is functioning or things like that, or just events about certain data that are related to things that we've done, mention that in Slack, because there may be ways to incorporate that into some of the changes that are coming. MIT BM poster. We've kind of touched upon this already. I'll say a little bit more of that after this. Specific things personally that I wanted to mention. The Frontier Map project. There will be more. These are like my general updates. There'll be more in-depth discussion after this, but just kind of get through these quickly. Frontier Map is sort of my personal project that's taken many different forms, and it's kind of going to be the background for basically the rest of this presentation. But there are two things I wanted to mention specifically regarding that I'm planning to do with it, or under its umbrella. One of them is a cognitive science frontier finding paper, which will make sense as I go through the presentation. I talked about this with Bradley and somewhat with Anson and other people, but I'm not a cognitive scientist right now. I don't have formal training in the field, and I don't have a sense of a lot of things going on in the field, but a lot of my interests are leading towards what cognitive science is or has been. And as I'll get to a little bit later, for people who don't know, cognitive science is sort of an attempted conglomeration or amalgamum or synthesis or bringing together a few different fields like AI and psychology and, well, I guess linguistics and computer science and things like that to bring together new science of the mind. And it kind of started in the 50s, in the 1950s. And there's been a few different changes and directions in there. And they're kind of related to, if people are familiar with artificial intelligence, they're kind of related to the different winters and changes in funding and everything else that's happened in AI and computer science as well. But the field finding paper for me is very much related to the concept of the frontier map when I originally did it, which is that I'm going to be working on a paper that is essentially describing, at the very least, what's recently happened in cognitive science regarding my interests and where things will be going. Because it's a very nebulous field, and as we'll very shortly see, there's a perhaps very legitimate criticism that cognitive science isn't as robust or diverse as it seems. So I'm just saying, I've had this discussion with Bradley kind of for over a year or more about, hey, I'm looking at this, I'm researching this, or I'm finding Anthony Chimera's book, and I'm looking at embodied cognition, and there's like different sort of like little slices into this big morass of cognitive science and the philosophy behind it and everything else. But I think I'm going to be formalizing that into a specific paper based off of basically field finding, if you will, or finding a place in the field, or defining some parameters of what I'm looking at or want to look at. And this will be more clear in a little bit. A related paper I want to do that I mentioned before, and I've started very slowly working on, is just cataloging different ways of modeling cognition. And as you can kind of see, they're sort of related, and it's sort of very foundational work that I want to do. But I want to look at specifically how, like, computationally speaking, I should put computationally speaking on that slide, but just finding different like methods or approaches and just listing them out, because I feel like that's something that will be helpful for me and new people into the field saying, okay, here's a certain methodology approach, actual package of it. And I don't expect it to be an exhaustive list, but just having it there to understand rather than having no context in how do I computationally want to approach these things. So those are two things that are definitely in the works in some form or another, that are related to the lab, but like of a very personal nature in what I've been trying to do with them. Similarly, upcoming blogs. I still am writing my Neuromatch Academy blog. There's been some great coverage and things I've seen from it, but I still have mine to do. My Person and Vision blog has been a long time coming. It's great. and all that stuff. And then the ICLR stuff that we talked about before that I presented on, that will basically be converted into a blog as well. Great. And last, and an overarching concept, or I don't know, new development that's fit everything else is the cognition discussion group. I basically it kept coming up in the Neuromatch follow-up area discussion. But some people are interested in it. I mentioned all the stuff that I've been saying about cognitive science, frontier, what do we do, how do I understand this? And some people were like, yeah, I'm in that same boat too. So it led to a discussion group, which is currently just a Telegram chat and a shared Google document. But I'm going to be doing a lot more with that over the future because it's so germane to what else I've been saying. It may lead to creation of certain coursework or materials inspired in a way that Neuromatch Academy has been. I don't think it's going to be. I'm not going to be hosting a summer school by any means, but I'm very interested in creating much better materials to serve as a primer for people that are interested in the things that I'm interested in, because I've spent quite a long time trying to sort things out, and I just think there's a better way to do it. So, without this will all be addressed very shortly again in more depth. I want to briefly mention the poster session to get this out of the way. I'm going to be going Thursday at 3:30. And the poster has not yet been made, and the title is not really finished yet either, and what's over here on the slides, but just please to be putting it out there. For anybody who's interested in working on the poster or familiar, or wants to get more familiar with the kind of ongoing work of the last 2 years, 2+ years of the lab, that may be something we can talk about or discuss, because I'll be working on that probably this weekend and this week, for sure. But it will be kind of using the meta-brain lens and going over the brain of the vehicle. So if anybody's interested in that, mention it on Slack, because there'll be some work on that end. Going back to the cognition discussion group, this is, a lot of what I'm going to say left has come up. I would say it's not because of the group, but more like because I've been doing the things. I've created a space where I will be going over some of the material with them, and it's very adjacent. It doesn't have to be something the lab does specifically, but something that I'm doing, and there's some overlap anyway, so I'm just kind of mentioning it here. And it's also the same stuff that I was going to be talking about in the lab anyway, at least for this week. So I mentioned Telegram chat, I mentioned the resource doc. Is it worth? I'll quickly show what that is too. A Chrome tab, which is here, just so you guys can see this quickly. It's right next to the resource list, and particularly regarding history and overview, I think is an important thing, because I haven't really found a lot of great resources on it, and I put them together here. There's also an online course that's starting soon on Coursera, and it's kind of funny because looking at a Coursera course right now after Neuromatch Academy, it's like, oh my god, that's a week. Of course I can work something for 2 hours a week. And it's like, yeah, it's not easy to do. So this looked interesting. I'm not saying I'm going to commit to it, but yeah. Some people really nicely added some questions here. What is integrated information theory? What happened to cybernetics was sort of like my funny question. What's direct perception? What's top-down versus bottom approach in neuroscience? So, if anybody here or in the group or discussion or whatever has just questions they'd like to ask or go over, just drop them in there. And these links will be provided. Actually, I don't know if we can just drop it in the chat right now or not, but I don't see an easy way to do that, so I'm not going to do that right now. Anyway. There's some research and development. This is all just kind of coming out of this week, so there'll be more to do with that. Go back to this again. Yes, I'm presenting Historical background. The Fred Cummins lectures were really great. There's 3 lectures. They're about 50 minutes each, but they're really good overview. So I recommend Fred Cummins on YouTube. He's very sane and sober about the circumstances that shape and extend the philosophy that guides what has been attempts at cognitive science. And Margaret Bowden has a gigantic book, actually recommended to me by Dr. Johann John of Boston University again. He's like, yeah, you're not going to find something much more comprehensive than this. And I started looking at the preface and the first chapter, which I'll get to next, actually. And the Coursera courses I mentioned. I mentioned potential coursework and collaboration to come from this, to be determined, but I see it kind of as adjacent or related to. In so many ways, a lot of the work that I've been doing the last year has been a lot of. I don't really feel like I've put a big to show from it, but there's actually a lot that could be put out into a more useful form. So I'm kind of going to be doing that. Is a general theme for that. Specific mentions where we're at now in the group or where I'm learning things. Bowden's definitely read the preface and chapter 1. I recommend that for anybody who's in my similar situation. And we have access to the book if you need access to those specific chapters or whatever. And contemporary questions, which is what we're going to get to very quickly. I know we're kind of running over, so I'm going to try to go really fast here. But we're going to talk a little bit about about this paper, Nunez's critique, what happened to cognitive sciences, which came out last year. It was kind of an interesting, controversial set of remarks, and that's the Society for Cognitive Science had a response to that. My question, which I won't get into all right now, is what happened to cybernetics? That's kind of led me down this road when I'm in the lab in a lot of questions, because I want to know what happened to cybernetics. I know much more now than I did before, but I'll mention that here quickly. And then just this overlap between frontier map and epistemological directories and navigating cognitive science. I'm just going to leave that bullet point there and say, yes, there's overlap. Really quickly, moving to Margaret Bowden's Mind and Machine. And I hope this displays that right on your video, but I don't know. Basically, really quickly, she says, in 1977, earlier, let's just say earlier, there was a time where you could have a comprehensive book about what was going on in essentially cognitive science. And because the fields at the time were very developed, like artificial intelligence, computer science, what was then cognitive science? It was a very particular set of things. And this, I just go from that period of time in the 80s or let's say days, and going back to, she's mentioning Russell Norbert, which I believe is Artificial Intelligence: A Modern Approach, which is a landmark book in 2003. And the book itself, Bowden's Mind and Machine book, is from 2006. So in 2006, she's saying, such a project isn't even possible anymore. And this is from the preface. And I just feel like that's a bit of allusion to, and almost vindication for, when I was coming to the field of what then was, I don't know, cognitive science or studying cognition or whatever you want to call it. There's just been such a lot of things that have happened that you kind of need to make your own map. Like, there isn't really a comprehensive thing. Like, this Margaret Bowden's book is, not current in that it's from 2006, but the book is several thousand pages. I think it's under 2,000 pages. And it's a complete history. Well, an attempt at a complete historical perspective, but it's just a lot. So my point is, finding ways to equip people with certain primers to go and study cognitive things with enough requisite philosophical background and historical context. I think that's an important thing for work in cognition. And even understanding that especially at this point in the history of it, that there's not like a coherent map. There's no world map that's established that you can say, look, and go do this. You kind of have to make your own, which is going to the frontier maps and then kind of the next. This is not present moment, and then what we're going to talk about next is like very recent, which is what happened to cognitive science by Rafael Nunez from UC San Diego and other et al. This probably doesn't look that good on your screen. Sorry about the resolution issues or background. I really encourage. I've only just started to look at this paper and the response paper to it, but I'll probably say more about this next week or in my general discussion group. But the bottom line, almost literally here, is a lack of curricular consensus, being subsumed by cognitive psychology, and what is like he's really questioning very going hard in the paint, as the analogy is in basketball, for the future of cognitive science enterprise. So he's going to be taking some hard stands here, and just to highlight some of those hard stands, rather miscellaneous. Oh, this one looks really bad. Sorry on the screen, but all these different fields of development, blah blah blah, and the initial common effort of cognitive science has turned into a rather miscellaneous collection of academic practices that no longer share common goals and paradigms. So this is like some harsh critique, and it was lobbied at many of the organizations that are kind of trying to steer cognitive science as well. As extended commentary on failure, like he goes into it really. He's laying out failed integration. Just think that did not work between the different branches, and this is a really nice paper from a historical perspective, even if he's saying things didn't work out. But cognitive psychology, and it's very, he's limited. He's basically referring in the second highlight here. There's talk about specific theoretical approaches that have kind of become what the field has been about. At least in how it's been talked about, and I would mention specifically for like my interest and other people's interest here, work on thought, language, and reasoning based on Jean Piaget, which is very much developmental biology and early childhood development and how children learn and things like that. Thought, reasoning, language, etc., are not considered cognitive psychology, and he's saying how that maybe has been pushed out of the field, and I feel like that's really important to be aware of, and he kind of concludes the paper by saying, a lot of stuff didn't work out. This paragraph is just great in terms of his critical context. The cognitive revolution was the stuff that happened in the 1950s with bringing cybernetics then and computational science and different things together. And a cross-disciplinary collaboration is very inspiring, but kind of what happened hasn't really come out quite like that. And he's basically saying it's up to future generations scholars to figure out how, in the post-cognitive revolution era, meaning kind of seeing that attempt didn't really come to fruition for different reasons, to best proceed. So yeah, I just feel like that's. I feel like in the last week I've synthesized quite a bit of stuff together, and these papers and the Bowden book and the Fred Cummins lectures seem like really important background. The post-cognitive era, what will that be? This is me being silly for a moment. I was working on this late last night. I had a friend in a different part of the world that I was talking to, and they're talking about quarantine life, and they're like, "Oh yeah, do you have time outside?" Like they couldn't go outside their house very often. Say you have a curfew, or you technically only let go for an hour, and it's like, "Oh, I don't want to do that because I want to be good." And I said, "You know who wasn't good? Who? The entire field of cognitive science for about half a century. At least in so much of the aims of moving towards a coherent interdisciplinary system." And I was literally making the slide while it happened. And this is the same screenshot as in the previous slide. That's a joke, but I just wanted to share that moment because it's kind of funny. I don't actually see cognitive science as a failure, but I'm interested in what's going on with it. I also want to mention the Cognitive Science Society didn't take this lightly. They, in so many words, they took it as a gut check, like, okay, we're doing this, and they put together a kind of, they tried to collect some papers that represented the different subfields of the domain, and I have not really gotten into this paper yet, but I look forward into this. I don't know, on the right is more of a collection of papers, I guess, or talking about their discussion for their article that was in response to the harshness critique. So this is kind of more of a stay tuned thing. I'll have more to say about that next time, or in the group, if anybody's interested in that specifically. But I guess I would just say, and this, I'm excited. Like, I spent the majority, I didn't really feel very good this week, but I spent the majority of my week sorting out this stuff, and I feel like things are shaping up, and it's cool to see. So I don't want to, I don't know if Brad has more to say, but I'm going to kind of, that's all of the content I had to say. There's plenty of time for discussion about this in the future or on Slack. But otherwise, thank you for enduring that. But that's it for me. Any specific questions before we go on to anything else? We don't have a lot of time, so we don't have to. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I guess I have a comment. Well, thank you for doing that. That was very good. I think it's good to reflect on like what we've learned over Neuromatch, and we're kind of moving over a lot of space here, constantly.
Yeah.
So it's good to reflect on what we've learned. I'm going to defer the thing I was going to present. I might put it up on YouTube, just as a standalone thing, just because I don't want to like spend an hour, because I'll probably take a while to do it. So I don't want to. But
what was it going to be about?
Oh, it was just on reflections about what's been happening over the course of Neuromatch and everything. It is more of a reflective thing, so I didn't want to like take another hour because it's going to take a while to unpack.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of being able to unpack this stuff, so it's good. I also wanted to give people time, like to maybe ask questions again, like. It's hard to do it on the spot. So if you have something you want to say on Slack or next week, please bring it up, because I think it's good to have like this sort of extended back and forth on the stuff. I do like this idea of like the CogSci, what happened to CogSci, what happened to Cybernetics. Like again, we're so focused on what we're doing at the moment, and moving things forward and all these sort of operational things that we don't think about, like, what happened to X that we were talking about, like, last year, what happened to it? And so, and not enough of that happens, because look how many papers are published every year, even just in like cognitive science or in, computational modeling and neuroscience. It's just hard to keep track of everything. And so, that's one of the things about the epistemological directories, the frontier maps, whatever you want to call it. That's one of the things. The great things about that is I think it allows you for that reflection.
I actually feel like this week frontier map was just this idea of like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I feel like with looking at, I feel like I probably have gotten a little more up to the level of the perspective that Bradley or other experienced people would have, in the sense of understanding, excuse me, sorry, just understanding what's going on. And I realized that a key part of my research aims are about knowing that, because there's sort of like a specific interest one could have, and there's also sort of steering where you want things to go. And I feel like it's taken me a long time to understand that, and I realized that I kind of, for me to really have, because I've been thinking quite a bit of like authentic like research questions and things that are driving me, and things that I would want to pursue in graduate school and beyond. And it's like, well, I have these interests, but where do they fit in the context of what's been going on? So I think there's something to say for creating these like epistemological directories, or just like getting familiar with doing that, especially in the context of cognition studies. Like I'm not saying there isn't like interesting theoretical questions in like physics or like neuroscience, but because of the way cognition is and the intense, philosophical history, the anthropological history, like the Fred Cummins lectures are great about saying, for a very long time people couldn't even think a certain way because of the repercussions of expressing views on topics. And then also like just the issues in funding and why was there this big shift towards symbolic logic, and why was there this big shift towards cognitive linguistics? Like I feel like I have a much better understanding for why my cognitive science program at my university is sort of a shell of what it used to be, because the funding changed away from linguistics processing. And there was this determination of, it's not this anymore, and there were very few people in the cognitive science minor underneath the program. So like as people who are going into the field say, hey, I have questions about the mind and the brain, and like this stuff is actually really important, and philosophically yes, culturally yes, funding wise yes, because it's like, how are you going to get funded to do the research that you want to do? You want to try to build on a lineage of development and insight, or at least correctively do it, maybe like the Nunes paper is referring. But, you still need to have sort of relevant contemporary issues and contemporary skills. Like you're going to have to know deep learning, you have to know machine learning right now to really bring things into it, even if you have issues with what deep learning can do with regards to the mind. It's like, I think that's like just important. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to be talking about in the group, and obviously here as well. Yes, thank you for the opportunity to say that, and I don't need to keep people any longer, but it's a very interesting ride to be on.
Yeah. I don't know if you shared the slides with the entire group, like you can put them in the general channel or something.
Yeah, they'll be in the Slack for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, thank you for that. There's probably more to say, but like I said, we can do that next week, maybe revisit some of the issues. Anson and Ash, do you have any final comments? Okay. Yeah, so again, like if you have questions about what Jesse was talking about, and this is, I think, more for his, like what he wants to do long term is own professional development, but of course there are a lot of questions we can follow up on with that. It's not just for that. So anyways, next week we'll talk more about, we might talk about the feedback project. We'll probably follow up on this. And we'll do the agent-based modeling. I think I'm going to do a NetLogo sort of a demo just so we can get into the, to show how it works. I think that would be a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for attending. And I see you around Slack this week, and have a good week. Talk to you next week.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.